Here we go, kicking off another big broadcast day here on Real America's Voice, MTN, and so much more. It's the Steve Gruber Show, live from Studio G. Here, the compound is fired up. We're ready to go. We've got a lot to talk about today. Yeah, kicking off the broadcast day. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Remember, this is a no panic zone. A lot to talk about today. Here are three big things you need to know to start this hour. Number one, another elected Democrat gets arrested for interfering with ICE officers doing their jobs. This time, the candidate for mayor of New York City physically obstructing the officers from doing their jobs. Number two, the FBI has been exposed for allowing the Chinese to flood America with tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses to help people obtain illegal ballots and vote for Joe Biden illegally. All true. We'll have all the facts coming up on that big story, and it is a huge story. And then number three, all eyes remain on the war between Israel and Iran as the attacks continued overnight. President Trump is also pondering what role the United States is going to play in the ongoing fight. I'm going to get you up to date on everything that has been going on over the last 24 hours. Keep an eye on breaking news as well. First of all, a busy day again, to say the least. Tehran getting pounded. Here's a bit of a sample of what we saw from overnight. Here it is. So the question is, where are we this morning? And the answer is about where we were yesterday, 24 hours ago. No big move. The president called for a complete and total surrender of Iran. That, of course, has not happened. In fact, it looks like Iran might be preparing missiles for retaliatory strikes against U.S. bases in the Middle East. That would be a critical mistake. That would be a critical mistake for the nation of Iran, to say the least. But Donald Trump said this in a post to Truth Social yesterday, and I'm on Truth Social right now, nothing new yet today from the president. I'm just monitoring to make sure we're not missing anything. He's talking about some great poll numbers, and I'll get to that because they are pretty remarkable. We now have complete and total control. That's what he said in a post yesterday, just before noon. We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran has good trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. He says stuff in quotations. Nobody does it better than the good old U.S. of A. Now, he's not saying that we are directly involved, but he is saying that American equipment is involved. Minutes after publishing that, Trump added to social media, unconditional surrender, all in capital letters. That happened about 12:30 Eastern time. And then at 12:45 pointed out to the Ayatollah, we know where he is. We know where he is. So what does this mean for the region? Well, the Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, says his country doesn't want nuclear weapons. They don't want them. But if Iran were to get them, they would quickly follow suit. Listen to this.
Iran is not a rival to Saudi Arabia. Its army is not among the top 5 armies in the Muslim world. The Saudi economy is larger than the Iranian economy. Iran is far from being equal to Saudi Arabia.
But I've seen that you called the Ayatollah Khamenei the new Hitler of the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he wants to expand. He wants to create his own project in the Middle East, very much like Hitler, who wanted to expand at the time. Many countries around the world and in Europe did not realize how dangerous Hitler was until what happened happened. I don't want to see the same events happening in the Middle East.
Does Saudi Arabia need nuclear weapons to counter Iran?
Saudi Arabia does not want to acquire any nuclear bomb. But without a doubt, if Iran developed a nuclear bomb, we will follow suit as soon as possible.
There you have it. The whole Middle East would turn nuclear if Iran gets their weapons. So, focused on the Iran nuclear facilities. That focus remains intense today. Donald Trump, of course, in the Situation Room yesterday, sorting out his options, was there more than an hour. No decisions made. Obviously, nothing that happened quickly, anyway. Nothing to indicate that any change in position had taken place before or after the meeting. And he convened that conversation to decide what to do next. How do we proceed? One of the most telling bits of video yesterday, and I don't have it here, but I should have brought it for you, was the newsroom in Tehran getting bombed while they were on the air. Probably seen it by now. Remarkable footage. Yeah. Meanwhile, Steve Bannon on the side of no more wars. And I think that he has that opportunity. Listen to this.
Kind of, Kayleigh, no offense, and I realize you went to Harvard, so we won't hold it against you. Kayleigh, is, a lot of people know, is a graduate of Harvard Law School. It's just not, let's go bomb some stuff because we want action. You have to think it through, and you have to think it downrange. The last thing this country wants, the last thing President Trump wants, is to be dealing with a massive humanitarian crisis on another failed Middle East regime, like in Syria. This one will be 10, this is 10x what Syria is. That collapses, and all of a sudden they're calling for the United States, humanitarian. Look what's happening in Gaza when they're calling the United States to do something. That is 1/100th of what Persia will be, right? What will Persia will be. And so we have to be very, 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 you have to really think this thing through. And that's what President Trump is spending so much time on it. That's why he's going to the National Security Council. That's why he flew back. President Trump is not, he ain't going to jump into this. He's going to think it through. And even when he takes an action, he's going to want optionality off that action, other options. That's the way he negotiates. That's the way he rolls. Today,
transactional. Looking for a transactional outcome. He wants to know that if he gets involved, what the outcome's going to be. What does it mean for the United States going forward? What does it mean? Well, one more thing, by the way, and this just makes you go, really? Remember Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma? Wanted to pass that garbage open border bill and tell us how great it was. We'd only let 5,000 people in a day. By the way, I've got some new numbers on that. They are remarkable. Greatest single month ever for secure border, ever. Well, he wanted to pass that garbage open border bill to James Lankford. Now he wants to pummel Tehran into submission. These guys all want war. Listen.
So speaking of the Supreme Leader, the president posted on his Truth Social platform that America knows where he is, that we could, it implied, assassinate him, but we will not for the moment. Do you think the United States should assassinate the Supreme Leader if they can?
The assassination of any individual and any foreign dignitary or leader on this, but we most certainly need to have regime change in Iran. This is the same regime that's threatened America and Americans. This is the same regime that oppresses their own people, that they use the money that they get from oil money to be able to put towards terrorism, to be able to kill us and our allies. They chant death to America in the streets. We definitely need a new regime there.
Well, there might be truth to that, but the problem is coming from him, nobody trusts it. I've got a lot more to cover here after the break. Good morning. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now. Just trying to keep you up to date with the most critical information. Some believe that Iran is preparing, right now as we speak, an assault on American bases in the Middle East if America gets more involved in this war between Israel and Iran. The key target here in all of this is a place called Fordo. 2,500 acres, a huge complex where they enrich uranium, much of which is half a mile underground in a mountainside. So we don't know what Iran has exactly because Fordo is hidden. And America has one of the only things that can destroy such a facility, the Bunker Buster Bob, the Moab, the mother of all bombs. More than 15 tons, 35,000 pounds of pure pleasure. And Israel can't deliver that weapon. America can with B-2 stealth bombers or even B-52s. Keep you up to speed on that. The United States has bases in the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, also in Bahrain, Qatar. And all of those bases are well within easy reach of Iranian missiles. But to go there would be absolute suicide. The United States has 40,000 troops in the Middle East. I don't think anybody wants a war, but on the same token, I don't think that anybody is going to roll over and say, we're okay with any of this, because we're not. And as Donald Trump has said repeatedly, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All right, so back to some other news here. This is it all kind of wraps together. You've got Donald Trump in a situation where some of his supporters are questioning America's involvement in this war, but it certainly has not hurt him in the polling numbers. That's why I asked yesterday on this program and asked you to go to my X account, my Twitter page, and say, hey, how do you weigh in on this? And about 15% of the people said they would not support the president if he went to war with Iran. Now, I don't know if it's Republicans or Democrats or MAGA people weighing in. It's a social media question. But here's what I do know. Insider Advantage just did a poll. National survey, Donald Trump's job performance, approved 54%, disapproved 44%. That runs in line with what I've been hearing from Rasmussen and Mark Mitchell, our good friend. Last time I looked at it was 52-46 there. So 54-44 seems to make a lot of sense. But there's the polling number. Insider Advantage National Job Survey done over the 15th and 16th of June. Margin of error just over 3 points. Pretty good poll for the president again. Oh, and 90% of Republicans support what he's doing. 90%. Meanwhile, you've got people like Pew Research putting out polls that say the disapproval of Donald Trump is 58%. That's a complete garbage poll. I will tell you right now. Here's the Rasmussen number, 52-47 yesterday, so I was pretty close. I thought it was 46, but 52-47 plus 5. Insider Advantage has it double of that. And I can assure you right now, look, at this point, even on the, look, listen to this, even on the Real Clear Politics average, Donald Trump is more popular today than was Barack Obama at the same point in his second term. Donald Trump is more popular than George W. Bush at the same time in his second term. Donald Trump's numbers at 46.5 on the average, which I'm going to tell you again, the average is being pulled down by garbage polls from Reuters and Economist YouGov and others. They're garbage polls. And I know that because I watched the polls all the way to Election Day, November 5, 2024, and there's no question that a couple of companies stood out. Insider Advantage was one of them. Rasmussen was another. Trafalgar was another. I think Rasmussen had it, just so perfect all the way out. And he has Donald Trump +5, insider advantage +10. Kind of hard to argue with. It really is kind of hard to argue with. So let's see here. So that's a big number. Great poll numbers for Donald Trump. And why? Because he's doing what he said he was going to do. Here is one of the most remarkable things I have heard. Border agents didn't release a single illegal into the United States last month. Not one. Not a single one. Can you imagine? Let's see. Agents only caught 8,725 illegals trying to come into the country at all. Compare that with May of 2024. 117,905 were stopped. Down to 8,700. Oh, and by the way, they were releasing thousands into the country every month as a result, too. Just let thousands in. Border numbers continue to trend at historic lows, reinforced, and the sustained success of our enforcement efforts continue to secure the homeland and protect American communities. Yeah, that comes from Paul Perez, National Border Patrol Council President. Man, is he right? What a remarkable turnaround. Congratulations to Donald Trump and his administration for getting that dialed right in just like he said he would. Are you frustrated by the gridlock in Washington? Do you wonder why Congress can't get much done? Well, there's a way to understand how we got here, what can be done about it at this point. My friends at Hillsdale College, they put together this free online course, Congress, How It Worked, Why It Doesn't, taught by Hillsdale's own Dr. Kevin Porteous. The course reveals the original purpose of Congress, how the founders designed it to work, and why today's dysfunction, it's no accident. You'll explore key moments in American history, the role of partisanship, how changes in rules, incentives, and culture have reshaped our legislature for better and for worse. And the best part, it's all free. My friends at Hillsdale do this every day. More than 40 courses now, free online. Great stuff about the Constitution, the founding of the country, Christianity, all of it. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. Find out more right now. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. You're going to love this. Take my word for it. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. By the way, coming up in just a moment here, Dr. Bill McClay will be here. He has a brand new video series from Hillsdale, The Story of America. We're going to talk right about it right here, coming up. Meanwhile, 20,000 driver's licenses were confiscated at O'Hare International Airport in the late summer of 2020. It was actually 19,000 and change, but we'll call it 20,000 because it was right close to that number. And the reason it matters is because these driver's licenses were created by China. Fake driver's licenses. And they were good because they had gleaned information, come up with real people with real addresses, and driver's licenses that were really good. They were confiscated. And so you have problems. Because the point of the whole scheme was to get people registered illegally with fake driver's licenses to then vote for Joe Biden. To vote for Joe Biden. That's the scheme here. This is an FBI investigation, now turned over to Congress. intel on these fake Chinese driver's licenses in an attempt to impact the election of 2020. And boy, does that ring true with what I have said from day one here. It was never about the machines. I never thought it was about the machines. I always thought, and I always said on this program, it was about mass mail-in ballots because you couldn't control them. And you put COVID out there. And you create hysteria. And then you drive governments in places like Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. My God, we've got to have an emergency provision here so people can mail their ballots in because they're scared to death. That's what they did. Except in this case, they had, well, 20,000 fake licenses. Those are the ones that were caught at O'Hare. Where are the others? Hundreds of thousands? They claim Joe Biden got 81 million votes. They overcompensated. It wasn't about Russia interfering with the election in 2016. It was the proof and the truth about China interfering in the election of 2020, which I would, by the way, suggest is an act of war. We'll be talking a lot more about this over the days to come. I'll take a break and be right back. Well, as we talked about, Hillsdale has a brand new series now, The Story of America.
Dr. McClay's on hold.
And The Story of America is another free offering from Hillsdale that you can find at Gruber for Hillsdale.com. These These videos are remarkable. And Professor Maclay, unfortunately, they just lost power where they are. We would see his smiling face, but instead we're going to hear him on the phone because they lost power where he is. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for dealing with these circumstances beyond our control. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine. Well, you know, I heard you in there talking to Anthony, and everything was good to go, and all of a sudden, whoop, there you went, eaten by a gremlin.
No, power just went out. I think somebody's behind this.
Well, I think so too.
FBI or I don't know.
It's a conspiracy.
But we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, we're doing it. You know, I want you to weigh in on something because I was going to ask you something, and that's when I realized that you were frozen and you had gone away, because I was talking about this mass-produced fake IDs, driver's licenses created by the Chinese. I heard you comment on it and say, look, it's a lot worse than what I just said, and you're right.
Yeah.
Because the part I didn't get to is that Christopher Wray's FBI had the information, and they recalled it. And what I mean by that is they called the investigation and just kind of shoved it to the side and pushed it under the rug. Nobody investigated it in 2020 when they had the cold, hard facts. True or false?
Yes. True, at least. I mean, look, if I can believe the report, and I think this is something Kash Patel revealed. So
it is.
No reason to be thankful. We have somebody at the FBI who wants to clean house.
Well, and I say that because, we've been at this thing we call America for 250 years. We've been attacked before. We've had people try to, play games with us before. But this is on a scale that maybe we haven't seen before. The Chinese bringing in literally tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of illegal licenses to get people to register to vote, to impact our elections, and all to favor Joe Biden. Where I grew up here, and I grew up in Michigan as well, that would constitute an act of war, Doctor. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I hope you heard what I said about. I really liked when you said that. I think it is, but it's something. The groundwork has been laid for it by a kind of indoctrination of not just the young, but of the whole country into a kind of transnational ideology. That we're really beyond the need for borders and nations and nation states, and all this "Make America Great" stuff is passé. That's 19th century way of talking. Well, it isn't. It's human nature talking. That we need boundaries. We need to say what is ours and what is theirs, and to keep your hands off of what is ours. And we've been very, very lax in that, which is one of the reasons that our colleges and universities are in such trouble, because they have heavily foreign student bodies that they need in order to stay solvent.
Well, it's not just the foreign student body. It is the money flowing freely from Beijing to these universities. I mean, we just saw, sir.
And Qatar and all, and so.
Right, but we just saw, sir, the University of Michigan being the epicenter, where 5 students were arrested up at Camp Grayling pretending to be journalists taking pictures of exercises with the army from Taiwan. Then we just saw 3 more Chinese nationals, allegedly students of the University of Michigan, arrested for bringing in pathogens that could destroy our food supply, fungus and other things that they're bringing into the University of Michigan. I mean, these are all deeply concerning. If the Chinese could impact our food supply with a fungus, which they could, my God, is that not an act of war? Yeah,
it is. It is. And one of the ways that this all ties in, though, to one of the reasons we wanted to talk to one another is the 250th anniversary of our nation's birth. That we should regard this as a tremendous celebration of what we have accomplished uniquely among the nations of the world, and why we have been very inattentive in guarding it, in protecting it, and have instead been sort of blasé about the idea that especially in higher education, which is where I make.
Right, absolutely. Thomas Jefferson and others were clear about what it would take to protect this country, to protect this republic. And I get tired of people. It's a democracy. It is not a democracy. Yeah. It is a republic. John F. Kennedy said this once: "Today we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take up arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as a basic purpose of their daily life, and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. The cause of liberty, the cause of America, cannot succeed with any lesser effort," so said John F. Kennedy. I've got it posted on my wall over here. It's one of the quotes that sits in my studio here. It's important stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the invocation of Kennedy's name ought to remind people it wasn't that long ago that Democrats met people in the Democratic Party were on board with that kind of way of talking, and all you have to do is look at Kennedy's inaugural address to see that. And where did all that go? It went in a very quick, almost the blink of an eye, and that's really disturbing. But it's also something we can take hope in, because something happened that fast hasn't taken deep roots.
Yeah.
And that sense of national love and affiliation that's so intrinsic, so important to being an American, and the sense that, like the Minutemen, you got to do it. You can't expect somebody else to do it. You've got to do it yourself. And those of us who teach, we've got to teach the national story so that people know it and understand it and make it a part of who they are, their very being. That used to be the case. It wasn't that long ago. I think we can turn it around, but we can't waste any time doing that, because we have enemies in the world that take advantage of our sort of lackadaisical.
Well, that's exactly right. In fact, you look at, and I go back to the Chinese example. They exploit the very freedoms that we offer the world to undermine those very freedoms.
Yeah. Well, we've had this problem for a long time of how do we balance those freedoms and protection of civil liberties, which is something that we cherish, but they aren't the whole story. The protecting civil liberties of anybody who happens to be standing on American soil is not the sum total of what it means to be a good and loyal, patriotic American.
Right.
There's also the sense of what is ours, and of defending what is ours.
Absolutely, it is ours. It's our birthright, and people don't like that. I got to leave it right there, Professor. They don't like the term birthright, but it is. And the story of America is my birthright, is yours, is other Americans born here legally. It is our birthright. It's the story of America. You can find it at gruberforhillsdale.com. We're going to have the professor back to talk more about this and show you some clips of this video when we get these little technical issues ironed out. Professor Dr. Bill McClay, greatly appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be with you.
There you have it. Be proud to be an American. Be proud to look at John Kennedy and the Democrats who used to stand up for this country. Gruberforhillsdale.com, the story of America, the latest offering. Check it out today. Time is our most precious commodity. I've heard from so many. All right, your good health, something we talk about here regularly on the program because I want to make sure that you're all right every single day. We talk about preventative medicine. We talk about taking care of yourself in advance. We talk about dealing with illness once you become sick. We talk about all of that, and a lot of it comes back to my friends at the Wellness Company because they've got things that they can help with all sorts of things. And they've also got a lot of opinions about what's happening with, say, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., among other folks. Dr. Alejandro Diaz is the Chief of Pediatric Medicine at the Wellness Company. Doctor, nice to have you back on the program.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you for being here. All right, so speaking of Bobby Kennedy, he fired all 17 members of the powerful Vaccine Advisory Committee. He threw them all out. Good idea, bad idea? I mean, the people on the left are screaming like smashed cats. What are your thoughts?
You know, I really think that Secretary Kennedy, he did an amazing move because he promised to create a new committee focused on radical transparency and gold standard science. And, you know, it was necessary to restore public trust in vaccine policy. So I think this was a phenomenal change, and removing all those 17 members and bringing at least right now 8 new members, what I believe they have a vast experience, and let's see if they can bring what everybody's waiting, you know, especially in the scientific community like immunologists and vaccinologists like myself, you know, and bring double-blind placebo control trials to the new vaccine industry. That will be the best move ever in the vaccine industries for the last 100 years.
Obviously, a lot of questions about the mRNA experimental jabs that people got during COVID. I don't like calling it a vaccine. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure what it was, but it was ineffective, didn't stop disease. It created inflammation in heart tissue that's caused myocarditis in young men more than anybody else. It proved to be, well, quite dangerous to young men, didn't it?
I'm with you 100%, Steve. And, you know, as an immunologist, vaccinologist, I never call them vaccines because they are not vaccines. What I call them, it's toxic injectable products of experimentation. And, you know, one of the main focus of the ACIP, which is the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, it's number one, develop evidence-based vaccine recommendations, determine vaccine schedules, which is very important, and not only for the US, but worldwide, because most of the countries, they based on the CDC schedule. The number three, it's evaluate new vaccines and obviously review safety and efficacy data on vaccines. So I think this is going to be phenomenal.
It's time that we clean up our act, quite honestly. And I agree with you on that. You know, I talked about being healthy ahead of time. I just completed this parasite cleanse. I went through the 21 days of the ivermectin mebendazole cleanse. It is the gold standard. It's offered by the Wellness Company, by the way. I just went through it. I feel terrific. And for a lot of people, they've got brain fog, they've got fatigue, they've got joint pain, they've got general aches and pains. They don't know why. 60 million Americans have parasites, but this medical establishment we have in America doesn't seem to focus much on preventative medicine as they do about trying to cure something when people get sick. We need to work ahead of time, don't we?
Definitely. And, you know, unfortunately, it's health. It's based on a sick care paradigm and not on health care. That's exactly how we have to focus on. And, you know, this combination that the Wellness Company has been able to compound 25 milligrams of ivermectin and 250 milligrams of mebendazole, I think it's an amazing combination, and it's helping a lot of people.
Yeah, it's helping a lot. Like I said, it is the hottest thing going out there right now. I just went through it. And what kind of, I mean, if you eat sushi, if you have a dog or a cat, parasites are around, aren't they?
Every year, Steve, there are millions of diagnoses in the United States for parasites. So this is something that has been happening for decades. And this combination is just an amazing combination. It's helping a lot of people, including myself and many other patients that I mean, we all, most of all, we carry some sort of parasites on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. As we've said, the gold standard is ivermectin. Mendazole. We'll tell you more about that in a moment. But before I go there, I want to bring this back full circle because I was just seeing here again, the doom and gloom crowd telling me that there's new COVID out there, one that's more transmissible, that I should be getting my COVID injection to protect myself. I will never have an mRNA jab again. I went through that. They fooled me once. They got me once. All right, never do that again. But what can you tell me about this new strain of COVID?
Yes. So, Steve, I think you're referring to the new strain, NB 1.8.1, and which is called Nimbus, and is what they call it just a subvariant of Omicron. But I really think it's just propaganda. If we're talking about deep into the immune system, as an immunologist, I just can tell you that the vast majority of people in the United States, they either had their immune protection from the natural infection of all the other strains, and also from the, let's say the so-called vaccines at some point. So nobody has to worry about anything. This is just something about just another
propaganda is what you said. It's
another
propaganda.
common cold. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
There's no question.
If you want to find out more about how to take care of your health, the Wellness Company is the place to go. They've got supplements. They've got the gold standard for parasite cleanse, ivermectin and mebendazole. By the way, if you order it today, you'll save $60. You'll have free shipping. It is the gold standard, right? So 60 million people, don't be one of those folks. The Wellness Company has the solution. Like I said, it's available right now. TWC.health/Gruber, TWC.health/Gruber. Save $60, free shipping. You can have the gold standard cleanse today. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Really appreciate it. All right, don't wait. And there's so much more to find out at the Wellness Company. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. I'll be right back. He was right here a few minutes ago. Our professor from Hillsdale, Dr. Phil McClay, was right when we were talking about, I didn't even tell you how bad it was. We've got these tens of thousands of Chinese flooding America with mass-produced American driver's licenses. All a scheme to hijack the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots for Democrat Joe Biden. By the way, if you want to find out more, you can go to justthenews.com. All right, you can go to justthenews.com. You'll find out a lot more. And you'll find out that Christopher Wray's FBI recalled the investigation. They had whistleblowers saying, look, we just found all this. And they're like, yeah, let's just recall it. And they never investigated. But Kash Patel is investigating. Just the News reporting that the FBI had a new confidential source, summer 2020, that the Chinese government was manufacturing and exporting fake U.S. driver's licenses as part of a plot to create voter identities for Chinese residents in the U.S. so they could vote with fake mail-in ballots. Well, there you go. Most secure election in history, right? 2020. No, not the most secure election in history. That's complete bunk. Complete and utter bunk. Yeah. In fact, it's maybe the least secure election in history, thanks to the Chinese. It's your chance to get on board and make some money with crypto. Don't be left out because the elites got it first. Block Trust IRA is changing that, bringing the crypto opportunity to real Americans like you. Crypto, fueling President Trump's America First economic miracle. Now is your chance to join the movement. The Animos AI trading platform runs 24/7, crushing old school strategies, helping you and others build wealth just like the fancy folks. Named the #1 crypto tech platform by Bitcoin Magazine, Block Trust IRA offers up to $200 million in protection, and their clients, some of them seeing returns of 250%. Whether you're a school teacher, truck driver, doesn't matter, you have a chance to get on board now. Steve Gruber, crypto.com. Steve Gruber, crypto.com. One more time, SteveGruberCrypto.com. Coming up, Tom Leonard is running for governor in Michigan. And we've got so much more. That's just part of what we have straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show. See you there. All right, kicking it out for another big hour here at the Steve Gruber Show. I'm glad you're along for the conversation. Look, we bust our tails every day, so you'll come in here and get the best information possible as we fight for you from the foxhole freedom here in Studio G. We're doing it every single day. It's not going to change tomorrow. We're going to continue to fight for this country. I do have a trigger warning for you, though. The Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, optimism, and enthusiasm in America's future. We're live in all 50 states and all over the world. It's a dirty job, but I'm willing to do it for you. Here are three big things you need to know right now. Number one, Ilhan Omar is arguably the worst member of the U.S. Congress. She hates this country. Hates it. Because we're standing with Israel and a host of other things. She's among those that should be sent back to wherever it is she came from. Number two, with the Chinese effort to push potentially deadly and destructive pathogens into the country, we're learning more about incidents that should be taken very seriously, more seriously than we're doing it now. And number three, Democrats appear to have taken sides with terrorists, both overseas and here at home, too. You have to hear the insanity coming from these people to really appreciate. And I mentioned her, so why not we start with Ilhan Omar, one of the worst of all, lying about the Trump administration and the focus on deporting illegals out of this country because they're here, well, illegally. But to understand the depth of the evil and depravity, you have to hear it. Here she is.
To be coming out of our country, I mean, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade. It is really shocking, and it should be a wake-up call for all Americans to say this is not the country we were born in. This is not the country we believe in. This is not the country our founding fathers imagined. And this is not the country that is supported by our Constitution, our ideals, our values. And we should all collectively be out in the streets rejecting what is taking place this week.
Yeah, we should be rejecting people that hate America. That's what we should be rejecting. We should reject people who have sided with terrorists over the people of Israel. We should reject people who suggest that violent crowds taking over American college campuses is free speech while Jewish students fear for their lives. That's who we should reject. Meanwhile, the leader of the Democrat side of the Senate across the hall from her chamber, New York's pride and joy, Chuck Schumer, demands amnesty for all illegals. 20 million or more, doesn't matter. Amnesty for all. Here he is.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Yeah. 20 million? Yeah, they should all have a chance to stay here for free, right, Chuck? Don't follow any rules. Meanwhile, if you missed this, for the second or third time in the last week or two, a Democrat, this time a candidate for mayor in New York City, gets in a tussle with federal officers. Now, these officers are trying to arrest a man who's in the country illegally. So this clown gets right in the middle of it. He gets right in the middle of it and starts grabbing on the police and then gets arrested. And boy, the left goes nuts. Here, listen.
Let go and show me the judicial warrant.
Where is it?
Sir,
where is the warrant?
Sir, I have it in my hand here. I would like to see the warrant.
I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let go. I would like to see the warrant,
and then I will let go. Take him in. Take him in. Take him in. Take him in. Let's go. You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. Sir, you don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
You don't have to. I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking for a judicial warrant? You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens asking for a judicial warrant.
Brad, we go too. Sorry. No way. I'm safe. Where are you taking him? Hello? Hi,
Yeah, all right. Brad Lander is his name. Brad Lander is his name. Hours later, he's walked out of the federal courthouse where he was being held. And, of course, he came out with New York Governor Kathy Hochul. Hochul said the charges against Lander had been dropped, though the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York said it's continuing its investigation. He was clearly latching on. If I grabbed onto federal law enforcement like that, I would be in jail. The governor wouldn't be coming to my defense. Not ever. But here's what the governor said. Listen.
And that's when I got word of what had happened to my colleague in government, our controller, Brad Lander. The video is shocking. I knew I needed to come down here immediately and check on his whereabouts and do what I could to intervene. I'll let Brad speak about his experience. To my knowledge, the charges, there are no charges. Charges have been dropped. He walks out of there a free man. But here.
So she's given a green light to anybody who wants to attack a federal agent in New York. You have the green light to do so. Congratulations, you can do anything you want. Governor says so. Can you imagine you grabbing onto a federal agent, you tussling with federal law enforcement, saying you don't have the right, and grabbing them physically, grabbing them as he was doing? Yeah. You'd still be working on making bail if any bail was set at all. Did you know scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you? The FBI has a term for it. They call it house stealing. It's a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners, people like you. Let me lay it out for you. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee, and file it with your local recorder's office. Just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. They can take out loans using your equity as collateral, even sell the property behind your back, and you won't even know about it. Not until collection starts and you get those foreclosure notices. So let me ask you, when was the last time you checked your home title? Well, when I was asked if you're like me, the answer was, well, I've never done that. It's exactly what scammers are counting on. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. And here's what you get. Immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property. Urgent alerts if there are any changes. If fraud should occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud, restore your title at no additional cost. Here's the best part. I've teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report. You can find out if you're a victim already. A $250 value for free. Go to HometitleLock.com. Use the promo code Gruber. That's right, HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. You'll get $250 in savings and the peace of mind and protection you deserve. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. Back in a moment. All right, well, the field running for governor in Michigan is getting a bit crowded as people are throwing their hat in the ring. The latest, Tom Leonard, former Michigan House Speaker Tom Leonard, announcing Tuesday that he's running for governor, said his campaign would focus on making Michigan a growth state where children can build their future, as well as making life more affordable for lowering taxes, reforming burdensome regulations, and empowering workers through freedom to work policies. He joins me now. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, my friend. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here.
Nice to see you again. All right, so it's been a bit since you were on the main stage, as it were. Give the folks your background a little bit for anybody who might not be familiar, and tell them why you've decided to jump back into this thing we call politics.
Yeah, so first, let me start with the why, and then I'll get into the background. But the why is very simple, Steve. I've got 3 reasons, and those reasons are Hannah, Thomas, and Danny. That's my 8-year-old, my 5-year-old, and my 11-month-old. And when you look at Michigan right now, the first 2 decades of this century, the only state that was worse for population growth than Michigan was West Virginia. We're 49 out of 50 right now in unemployment, and I believe there's a good chance in the next few days when the statewide rankings come out again, we may be 50 out of 50. We have an educational crisis. We have a mental health crisis. We have a governor we've seen through the state police that's not standing with law enforcement. Frankly, I don't want my children in the next 10 to 15 years to have to leave this state for better opportunities. So that's why I'm doing it. Bit about my background, very quickly. Grew up in a small town called Montrose, just north of Flint in Genesee County. My dad was a line worker at Buick City, and then later became a small business owner. Went to the University of Michigan for undergrad, Michigan State University for law school. Became a prosecutor in Flint for 3 years, best job I ever had. Did a short stint in the Attorney General's office, and then ran for the state legislature. My final term served as Speaker of the House. And then you may recall in 2019, I was nominated by President Trump to be his U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan. Unfortunately, that is one of the few positions that our home state senators have the opportunity to block. And after about 10 months of vetting, Senator Stabenow stepped in and blocked that nomination from going forward. So since then, I've been a partner at the Plunkett Cooney Law Firm. Yeah, yeah. And frankly, when I got the call from her office, in 2018, as you know, I ran for Attorney General, and it was the closest election that year in a very tough environment. And when her staff called me, I couldn't believe how brutally honest he was. His response was, listen, we had anticipated you going through, but she's under a lot of heat from the base. You were the closest statewide candidate a year ago. She can't let you proceed.
So politics, you got your head lopped off because you were honest, you had integrity, you had supportive voters, so therefore you got kicked out. All right, so now we're in this race.
And sadly, I was going to say, sadly, she let 4 million people in this state go without a federal prosecutor because of politics. I'll just say that.
Of course she did. And now she's gone, and that's fine. But all right, so Gary Peters resigns from the Senate seat. That's a different story we'll get to later, but it leaves that Senate seat open. That's a big race. And then the race for governor, a big race. We've got 2 big races on the horizon here in Michigan, and both are going to draw attention. And I think because you have 2, not 1, could bring more people out to vote, potentially. What are you going to bring to the governor's race, and why do you think you can win it? We've seen some of your people in the primary already get millions of dollars donated to them. It takes a lot of money to win a race like this, Tom.
Absolutely. And Steve, any race that we've ever been involved with, we've always raised the money that we need to get our message out. We're definitely going to do that. But I can tell you, nobody's going to work harder. No campaign's going to work harder. But I believe we're going to have broad appeal once we get to the general election. I was just saying this to somebody last night. I was the speaker, working with a great team and working with other great House members. We passed constitutional carry through the House. I believe that's the only time that was passed through a chamber. We passed making English the official language of the state of Michigan. But on the flip side, I was also the legislator that introduced legislation, and we got it across the finish line to expand expungements in the state of Michigan. I saw how this law was just burdening people who had made a mistake. We also got rid of driver responsibility fees. You may recall there were 350,000 people, 350,000 people that could not get a driver's license because of these ridiculous fees that our legislature had passed 20 years ago. It was a complete money grab. So when you look at that broad range of things that I've been able to accomplish on the conservative side, but also being able to go into these urban areas. I mean, in Detroit, 75,000 people couldn't get their licenses. We gave it back to them. So I know we're going to have broad appeal and a great message once we get through this primary.
All right. So, and so you think you win this? What kind of money do you think it's going to take? I mean, just off the top of your head, to win all the way through, not just the primary. I think it's going to be north of $10 million.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think even to get through the I'm talking about the general election here. This is probably going to be at least a $50 to $60 million race for the next
$50 to $60 million. $50 to $60 million.
I believe they may have to. When you look at this race in Georgia, those are going to be the two most expensive, I believe, that this country is going to be seeing this year. And then when you throw in that Senate race, it's just going to drive up the cost. So I believe, it can be upwards to 50 to 60 million to get through the general election.
Yeah. All right. So I don't even know how many people are in this horse race to be the nominee for the Republicans for governor, but I wish you well. I know the field is getting more crowded. What's your next stop? We got about 30 seconds. If people want to know more about you, Tom, where do they go?
We've got a rally we've got a rally tonight in Montrose. Tom for Michigan is our website. They can go there, can check it out. We've got a whole list of issues. And if you want to go to Montrose, the Montrose Orchards tonight, we'd love to see you at our rally at 6 o'clock.
There you go. Tom Leonard. I'm sure we'll talk a few more times before we get to that primary date. Greatly appreciated, sir. Best wishes out there on the campaign trail.
You got it. Thanks, my friend. Have a wonderful day.
There you have it. Tom Leonard, everybody. He's in the race now to be governor of the state of Michigan. Reading outcomes, something else he wants to deal with. Mental health crisis, something he wants to deal with. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. I have lost track, honestly, of how many people are in the race. After we get through a couple of debates, then we'll kind of pare that down. Tom will make that cut, I would guess. He's a veteran, and he's a seasoned politician. Still to come, Anton Chaikin, author of Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress. Franklin to Kennedy, that's coming up. Well, you hear a lot about these weight loss medications out there, and you hear some side effects not too great. But semaglutide and liraglutide have found to reduce alcohol consumption among regular drinkers. Board-certified rheumatologist Dr. Masa Tarani discussed the weight loss medications, GLP-1 they're called, which have gained popularity for treating type 2 diabetes and obesity, shown to have the surprising secondary benefit of reducing alcohol intake. You know, I've heard this from friends of mine that are taking these. Said, I drink some, but not like I used to, is what they said. A team of international researchers from Ireland and Saudi Arabia followed 262 adult patients with obesity who started taking GLP-1 medications. Among the regular drinkers, weekly alcohol intake decreased by 68%, from 23 units to just 8. It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? The findings published in the journal Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism were also presented at the European Congress on Obesity in Spain. So if you want to, lose weight and stop drinking, well, maybe there's the 1-2 punch for you right there, huh? Pretty good stuff to make sure that, well, you're feeling better. By the way, if you live in the northern United States and you're trying to save some money on your bills, maybe a Well Connect geothermal system is in your future. If you've got a well in your yard, you're already halfway to a geothermal system, just add a Well Connect as little as 8 hours and start saving big. You'll cut your heating costs by half or more, extend the life of your furnace, cool your home more efficiently, all without any major renovations. It's the fastest, most affordable way to bring geothermal home. Learn more at wellconnectgeo.com. American made, thousands in service already. Go look at this website. Trust me, you're going to love what this machine can do for you if you have a well in your yard. WellConnect, GEO, wellconnectgeo.com, made in Michigan, built for your well, and built for your future, really. I'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Anton Chaikin is my next guest, a historian and author of the book Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress from Franklin to Kennedy, Volume 2, 1830s to the 1890s. He joins me now. Anton, nice to have you on the program.
Very good to be back in the middle of a crisis.
Yeah,
Steve.
Let's talk about what's really happening here. You've got Donald Trump on Truth Social saying he wants total surrender. You've got the Iranians posturing as if they're going to attack U.S. military bases in the Middle East, which I don't think they will, but, you know, at this point, who knows? They're pushed into a corner. Israel, meanwhile, continues to punish them. They've taken out more than 40% of their missile launches, done significant damage to their nuclear infrastructure. But Fordo, that's the big facility that's a half-mile underground in a mountainside that remains unscathed. The only people that can touch that, from what I understand, would be the Americans, which would bring us into the war. It takes a 35,000-pound bunker buster, Moab, mother of all bombs, to get in there. By your estimation, where are we in all of this?
Well, there's a globalist apparatus that's deeply hostile to the United States that's pushing the president in this tragic direction. There is no emergency from Iran. There is no active nuclear weapons program in Iran. Tulsi Gabbard was talking about something pretty widely known in international circles. There's a history to this, and what it points to is that the globalist banking and other apparatus with the combined intelligence services of several countries, deeply hostile to our country, trying to end the threat of Donald Trump and the USA defying them on the program of our voters, which was rebuild the USA and get peace in these regions, for both wars. And there is no threat to the United States and no active threat to Israel. The history of this is that the United States in the past promoted nuclear science and nuclear energy programs for Iran. That was the American Patriots. The dullest faction, the Anglo-Americans.
Well, it's been a long time. I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Yeah. I'll just be blunt about that from where I stand. Yeah. And let's sort this out a little bit. Tulsi Gabbard, You're saying she was right, and yet numerous sources that I have in Washington and elsewhere that are reliable sources that are not politically motivated say that she was wrong, that Iran was a lot closer to having a crude nuclear weapon of some sort within a couple of weeks of when this attack began, 2 to 4 weeks. The window given to me by a number of people who are not political and have pretty good intelligence. So for me, it's mixed information, to say the least, sir.
Was Liz Cheney part of that circle?
No, she was not, and I appreciate the sarcasm.
To Iran against the alleged nuclear weapons there. What was the tragic outcome there? It was that
Well, I get that, but we can't compare. We can't compare what Liz Cheney did, and Liz Cheney was not part of my no. And so, like I said, I appreciate the sarcasm, but the fact of the matter is, I do have a lot of decent sources in Washington and around the country who believe that Iran was a lot closer than we were told.
What are the Iranians saying?
Say again.
What are the Iranians trying to say? What is their point of view? Put yourself in their shoes. What are they trying to do? They want to have a nuclear power plants that the United States in the past set them up to start. Eisenhower and Kennedy set up their programs. And the dullest faction, this international globalist faction,
in fairness, sir, in fairness,
Kennedy and tried to put us in the position of a British Empire instead of the America that brought electricity to the world.
But in fairness, those things that occurred, Eisenhower and Kennedy, that was all pre-1979. Iran is not the same country it was in the 1950s or 60s. Let's just be honest about that.
Because of the dullest faction that overthrew the Shah to put British Petroleum back in charge of their oil. We didn't agree with that. That wasn't America's program. That was the British and American traders program to reduce America's influence in the world. We were the ones who brought the idea of self-government to the world, including Iran's self-government. When that was betrayed by Alan Dulles and British intelligence, overthrowing him, America suffered a terrible loss of influence that led to the mullahs taking over in 1979.
All right, so let me ask you this. Let's
We're going to make that mistake tomorrow when we
let's
start
examine
bombing
that.
Iran.
When the mullahs of Iran say death to America, death to Israel, and we want nuclear weapons, you're okay with that?
They also say they want to have a nuclear power program.
Well, which part should we believe?
The United States. They say this. They say that. So
which part should we believe? Should we not believe that they believe death to America?
Believe President Roosevelt when he was in Tehran in 1943 and issued a report, the Hurley Report. Check it out, saying that Iran should be developed as a model for improving the lives of underdeveloped countries, and they should control their own resources, not the British. And when the Iranian parliament in 1951 nationalized the oil following FDR's lead, the Dulles CIA, the Dulles faction with the British overthrew the democratic government of Mossadegh and the Iranian parliament and put the British Petroleum Company back in charge of their resources.
And sir, I will grant you that is a fascinating. I will grant you that's a fascinating history lesson. It is, but it's not the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s. It's 2025, and the mullahs have been in charge since 1979. Regardless of how we got here, here's where we are.
We're also
and the people in charge in Tehran say death to America, death to Israel. We will not rest until these countries are wiped off the map. There's credible information that the Iranians would like to take out American bases throughout the Middle East. I have no reason to doubt that to be true, based on Iran funding the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the list goes on. Are they not the #1 state sponsor of terror? Are they not?
I'll give you one good reason to
answer the question. Are they not the #1 state sponsor of terrorism?
No, the state sponsor of terrorism is the international intelligence apparatus that threatened the life of President Trump again and again, tried to kill him. And they will do it if the United States humiliates itself by bombing a country that poses no threat to us.
So you think it's so? Who is this? Who is this international? I don't dispute it. But who is it?
The Five Eyes intelligence services. Why is
no? Who is the international cabal?
Blinded by cooperation with the other intelligence services that are dedicated to globalist aims, not to our national interests.
Well, you're right about one thing. I'll give you this. I'll give you this. You're right about one thing. We need a lot more time. You're exactly right about that. We need a lot more time. But boy, we slapped him across the face this morning, didn't we? We got him started. Listen, we're going to reach out. We're going to do a Spaces event or something, much longer format. You and I, we're going to talk. We're going to sort this out when we have more time and don't have to hurry. I appreciate you being here. Anton Chaikin, author of Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress. Sir, thank you. There you have it. There's a little spice in your morning. Spice it up. Look, lots of people, lots of opinions, lots of things that get stirred around, lots of questions to be asked. I'll be right back. All right, so, I was sharing some of these stories about China's scheme to impact the 2020 election. It's real. I've got the memo here from the FBI. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Levi Browdy, Executive Director with the New York-based Falun Data Information Center, an organization dedicated to ending the human rights abuse against people who practice Falun Gong in China. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve.
All right, so the Chinese, they don't like the Falun Gong. At one time they pushed the Falun Gong. They supported it, did the CCP. Then they realized, wait a second, these guys have more followers than the Chinese Communist Party, which is somewhere between 60 and 100 million members in a nation of more than 1 billion people. So they're less than 10%, the Chinese Communist Party. When they realized Falun Gong was kind of popular, they said, well, we can't have that anymore, and tried to crush it, didn't they?
Exactly. The 90s, Falun Gong was widely popular throughout China, ubiquitous. Even the Chinese government, they want you to know this, but they were widely supporting the practice for its health benefits and moral benefits. So, it was the popularity by and large.
President Xi's not in a good spot today. President Xi, and nothing to do with Falun Gong necessarily, but President Xi has had some, there's rumors that he may have had a stroke about a year ago. We're not clear on that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But the power structure over the last 12 to 15 months in Beijing has shifted. That's becoming more clear because the generals and so forth. Xi did a masterful job of getting rid of all his competition. People disappeared. He rearranged the power structure. He had no challengers. But now that seems to be changing. With the Chinese economy struggling, and it's not anywhere near the 5.5% GDP they claim. And now Iran gets some of its oil fields knocked out, where China gets, 25% of its oil? More pressure on Xi, isn't it?
Sure is. And I think, we've seen for decades, here's the thing, they're masters at covering up what's really going on in China, whether it was the cover-up of the COVID or the massive cover-up of forced organ harvesting crimes that they've been carrying out for years. And so that's one of the
members of Falun Gong, I might add. The forced harvest of organs, often from Falun Gong followers and devotees. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. It really started with Falun Gong, and that remains the single largest source as far as we're concerned. We're talking about murdering tens of thousands of people every single year. So if they're able to cover that up, their ability to cover up their hardships, the malpractice of their government, the policies is something that's very alarming.
Yeah, what the biggest thing that has alarmed me lately, two things. First of all, the infiltration by University of Michigan students into the ag sector of the United States, American farms, the fact that China has 500,000 acres of farmland in America. Now, that's just a fraction of what the foreign-owned farmland is in America, but it is significant. And then this story from Just the News this week, and I've got the memo here, the Chinese plot to hijack the 2020 election, and I think maybe they succeeded by producing tens of thousands of fake U.S. driver's licenses to get people registered to vote using real names and real addresses, but fake IDs. 20,000 were caught at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, and the FBI and the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, at the time, they recalled it. We don't want it. We're not too worried about that. And they didn't do an investigation, and yet now we know. That's exactly what China was up to impact the 2020 election and get Joe Biden elected, which it appears maybe they succeeded. Right or wrong?
Well, I think if you look at the transnational, Freedom House did a report on the Chinese regime, actually all regimes around the world. And they found the Chinese regime back in 3 or 4 years ago, and they found that the Chinese regime, to no one's surprise, is the worst aggressor of transnational oppression all around the world. And I think if you look at Falun Gong, the community we focus on, it's a real test case. Just to give you 2 quick examples, 2 Chinese spies were arrested and convicted for trying to bribe the IRS to target Shenyang Performing Arts, which is the performing arts company publishing the posters that was started by Falun Gong practitioners. And we did our own report, actually. We went around universities all around the country and found an egregious amount of Chinese government spies and activities to silence the voices of Falun Gong on campuses all around the country. So this is something that is very, very well known, the transnational oppression of Beijing.
Are you a practitioner of Falun Gong?
I have. Been practicing for over a quarter century.
Yeah, I find that most people involved, and not a slight, it's a fair question, because many of the people that I find that are defending Falun Gong are practitioners of Falun Gong, which is fine. Christians defend Christians, Jews defend Jews, and so on and so forth. Right? It's not a big deal. Why did China become so vicious with the Falun Gong?
Three reasons. One, exactly what you said. It was immensely popular. They did a study, found there's more people practicing Falun Gong than Communist Party members. But it was also, you have to understand, in the 1990s, Falun Gong represented a really renaissance of authentic Chinese spiritual culture, particularly Buddhist culture. And that's something the Chinese regime had been trying to stamp out for decades to impose Marxism. And so that was a reason. But the real reason, the third reason, and really what broke the straw that broke the camel's back, was the leader at that time, Jiang Zemin, was the first leader that didn't really have a lot of credibility, didn't go through the revolution. He was desperate to build up a cult of personality around himself. And right as he's trying to do that, everybody's talking about Falun Gong all around the country. And so he was the one who ordered that it be crushed, even though his own senior leaders, some of them were practicing Falun Gong, had family members practicing Falun Gong. It really was that man who said, eradicate this practice around the country.
Make it go away. We'll be done with it.
Yep.
Interesting. Falun Gong in China, though, is still practiced widely, isn't it?
Yep, tens of millions, in fact. And not only is it practiced, but there is what is clearly the largest civil disobedience movement in Chinese history, if not world history. Tens of millions of Falun Gong practitioners and their supporters engaging in peaceful civil disobedience, handing out leaflets, talking to people to try and combat the state-run media that tries to vilify them.
Right. Greatly appreciated. We're going to have to leave it there for today, Levi. Come back anytime. These are important topics. You come back anytime. We'll talk about China and its dark influence from farm fields to schoolrooms. All right? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Really appreciate it. I mean, every place you look, they've got their dirty little fingers in it, don't they? I'll take a break and be back with sports on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, time to check in on sports with my good friend Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. The Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup last night with a 5-1 victory over the Edmonton Oilers in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final in Sunrise, Florida. Panthers win the series 4-2. Sam Reinhart scored 4 goals for Florida, and teammate Sam Bennett was named the Conn Smythe Trophy winner as playoffs MVP. It's the Panthers' second straight Stanley Cup title. A full schedule of games in Major League Baseball last night. American League winners included Toronto, Detroit, and the LA Angels. National League winners included Atlanta, St. Louis, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. At the College Baseball World Series in Omaha, Nebraska, LSU beat UCLA in a rain-delayed game 9-5 to advance to the semifinals. Then, in an elimination game, Louisville took down Oregon State, and then Arkansas took down UCLA in an elimination game 7-3. The semifinals at the College World Series are today. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. Greatly appreciated. In Oklahoma, they say no pride flags on our public buildings. Now they're trying to take it federal. Josh Breachin, a Republican from Oklahoma, introducing a bill, reintroducing, I should say, to take down pride flags on federal property. I happen to agree with that. The American flag should fly on federal property, maybe the POW MIA flag. That'd be about it. That'd be about it. My pride flag is the American flag. Sorry, but that's who I am. You can do whatever you want. I don't have to endorse it. A great thing about America, I don't have to endorse what you do. Isn't that remarkable? Yes, it is. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Wolverine Water. Wolverine is Michigan's premier water treatment system. If you've got dingy sinks, your shower's getting brown, your clothes aren't getting clean, your hair doesn't feel right, well, maybe it's time for some water purification. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Do you ever think of that? I've been using Wolverine products since long before I did this radio program. I believed in Wolverine for many, many years. That's why they're the perfect partner. And remember, I only endorse things I believe in. Wolverine Water Systems is one of them. 75 years. Paul Mahaney, time I sent you on over. WolverineWaterSystems.com. I'll be right back. All right, firing on all cylinders and coming up ready to play. That's the Steve Gruber Show on is it a Wednesday? Good to have you here. So much to talk about from the Foxhole of Freedom today. Let's get rolling here. 3 big things you need to know in this hour. Number 1, a hitchhiker from the east. An invasive Asian tick has landed in the Midwest. It's what nightmares are made of for some folks. Number 2, the media fails to mention illegal aliens in much of their coverage of important things like crime in America. They always forget the illegal alien part. And number 3, here's something that I just picked up from Michigan News Source, and I realized I didn't look at Michigan News Source yesterday. What a mistake. So I'm about 12 hours behind on this story, but this is interesting. Vance Belter is the man charged with the murder of a Minnesota state representative and her husband. Strange story. He shot 4 people. A state senator and his wife, they survived. Former Speaker of the House and her husband, they both died. But police arrived at the house of Melissa Hortman and spotted this guy dressed as a police officer with a car that looked like a police cruiser in the driveway, got into a gunfight with him, and then he went into the house and murdered 2 people. How did that happen? How did police get into a gunfight and then he went in the house and murdered Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark? But that's not what I'm here to tell you about. That's just something that makes me go, really? How did that happen? How is that possible? That's just one of those things that, I'm here to tell you this. The hit list that he had, that had almost 60 people on it. Now, some people called it a manifesto. I don't know what it's called. They should just release it. Then we'll all know. But it included numerous Michigan people. Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State. Alyssa Slotkin, the Senator. Debbie Dingell, the Congresswoman. Hillary Scholten, the Congresswoman. Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman. Haley Stevens, Congresswoman. Sri Tanadar Tard, Congressman. Michigan State Police told Scholten her name was on the list. The shooting took place on the anniversary of the shooting of Steve Scalise, who was gunned down along with other members of Congress playing baseball. Remember that? Of course you do. But why were all this guy's in Minnesota. Michigan State Rep Jason Morgan of Ann Arbor said nobody in this country should have to fear for their safety in their own home and whether they're a public official or not, and nobody should be subjected to extremism and violence for just doing their jobs. We have to make sure we're not putting people in danger for showing up and serving their communities. You mean like police officers who don't want to deal with raging mobs and rioters or anti-Semitic crowds on college campuses? I completely agree, Mr. Morgan. I agree with you. You're right. We should not have to be putting up with that kind of intimidation and nonsense. I could not possibly agree more. I think you're right about that. Meanwhile, the Democrats who think that there should be no violence except when it's targeting people like me also think that I should be silenced. I should be silenced and people like me should be. Of course, there's not anybody quite like me, but I should be silenced and anybody that's in the same right of center lane should be silenced. AOC says so. She's the leading candidate to be president for the Democrats. She says I should be silenced. Listen.
You know, I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
Yeah, they're looking into telling me what I can say and whether they deem it to be true or false. I wonder what they would have deemed the 2020 driver's license scheme by the Chinese to deliver tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of fake IDs to America. True, by the way, according to the FBI and whistleblowers on the inside. Christopher Wray's FBI got rid of the research. The source of here's the memo, by the way. Here's the long hidden internal memo. The source obtained the information from an identified subsource who claimed they obtained the information from unidentified People's Republic of China government officials. This is an informational report, not final evaluated evidence. In late August 2020, the Chinese government produced a large amount of fraudulent United States driver's licenses that were secretly exported to the United States. The fraudulent driver's licenses would allow tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to the Chinese Communist Party to vote for U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden. Not being eligible to vote in the United States, China had collected private U.S. user data from millions of TikTok accounts to include name, ID, and address, which would allow the Chinese government to use real U.S. persons' information to create the fraudulent driver's license. Real name, real address, really good fake. The driver's licenses would include true ID numbers, true address of U.S. citizens, making them difficult to detect. China planned to use the fraudulent licenses to account for tens of thousands of mail-in votes, which they did. A person's address information was not a valid field when creating a TikTok account. It was unspecified how China would obtain U.S. address data from the application, sources available for recontact. And then they said, yeah, we're not interested. Interesting. Not interested. Pretty important stuff, wouldn't you say? The Chinese infiltrated our elections. They fraudulently inject themselves into our elections. President Xi did this. We know this now. We have the proof. We have the evidence. We have the smoking gun. And yet, no investigation so far. No investigation so far. Strange, really, wouldn't you say? Hey, you want coffee that does more? How about this? 1775 just launched Rejuvenate, the first anti-aging coffee of its kind. If you love coffee, you're going to love this. Rejuvenate from 1775 is the first ever coffee infused with CAKG, a clinically studied ingredient that supports strength, energy, and health, and prevents aging at the cellular level. Here's the deal. CAKG levels drop as we get age. As we get older, that means slower recovery, lower energy, feeling older than we should. But now there's a simple way to fight back without changing your routine. Rejuvenate is a real coffee. It's just smarter. Same bold flavor, same daily ritual, but now it's fueling your body with more. And right now you can grab the longevity bottle. It's worth $250. It's just $99. But there are only 1,000 out there. Hurry up. When they're gone, they're gone. 2 bags Rejuvenate, anti-aging coffee, a rare Peabody roast. Only 5% of the beans qualify for this. An exclusive 1775 gear you won't find in stores. 1775coffee.com/Gruber. Grab yours now. Drink coffee that fuels your freedom, your values, and your life. Feel sharper, stronger, younger, and know you're fueling the companies that actually give a damn about your health and freedom. There you go. Quick break. 1775 Coffee. God bless them. All right, back to it now. There's so much information to sort out every single day. I don't even know what to come up with it. So, Michigan Stonehenge. I sent my next guest pictures yesterday of Stonehenge beneath the waves of Lake Michigan. There really is this thing out there between Michigan and what's that? Oh, all right. Anyhow, so I found this thing. Ivy's speaking to me during the program. That's how these producers work. They come in, they say, hey, here's what's happening. All right, good. So Ron's having an issue today. But I sent Ron Rademacher. I saw this thing pop up on the internet called Michigan's Stonehenge or something like that. Apparently it's beneath Lake Michigan. And here's these, this circle of stones, older than Stonehenge, by the way. They say it's 9,000 or 10,000 years old. There are carvings of mastodons or whatever on the sides of these big boulders as well. And you've got these columns down there. Apparently it's a closely guarded secret as to exactly where it is, but it's somewhere between, Charlevoix and the island out there, Beaver Island, that is. Anyhow, fascinating sort of thing that I thought was really interesting. I had no idea that we had our own prehistoric. I knew we had stuff under Lake Huron, where they have these old hunting camps that are about 9,000 years old. So this would lead me to believe the same thing I've thought before, which is these places were occupied, and then the ice fields that began to melt 11,700 years ago, give or take, began to melt slowly over time, and they filled up and filled up and filled up, and now gave us what we call the Great Lakes. But it didn't happen in a massive traumatic flood. It happened very slowly over time.
Ron's on hold now.
Yeah, so anyhow. So Ron Rademacher with me. So Ron says, yeah, it's real, but he doesn't know where it is. Doesn't surprise me. Ron, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm lovely. Just look at me.
Yeah, I can't look at you. We have technical issues, but I can hear you.
What do you mean we? What do you got, a mouse in your pocket? I don't have technical issues.
You might want to check on that. Anyway.
I might have a glitch. I might have a glitch. Stonehenge. I don't have technical issues. Anyhow, Stonehenge, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so it's been, when I first saw it was directed to the ruins over at Negregon, the archaeologists from U of M told me how to find those, and they were the guys who told me about the ruins in Lake Huron on the Amberley Ridge.
Right, which I have been talking about. I've been talking about the Amberley Ridge ruins for, heck, a decade or more now, when I first discovered that. Go on.
Well, at that same time, they told me about this Stonehenge over in Lake Michigan, and they sent me a picture that had been taken, which I still have. I can send it to you. It's from above, and it's kind of a weird color because it's done with a radar robot. So that has been been well known for quite a while, and they really guard the location. I mean, you just can't find where this thing is because they're trying to protect it.
Unless you can find it on your own. Unless you can find it independently, you're not going to find it.
You're not going to find it unless you can find it independently. And the stone that has the mastodon on it, that same stone, they provide me with that picture as well. And I've never written about them or talked about them because one of the policies that Michigan Back Roads has is I don't write about it unless I've seen it.
Oh, that makes sense. I like it. It's good policy.
Or it's got to be very, very well, there's got to be a lot of testimony that it actually exists. And there is with this, but, they try to keep people away from some of these things so that people don't go down there and steal it or take selfies without any clothes on. You know how it goes.
Skinny dipping. It looks a little deep for that, based on the pictures I've seen.
Deep dive, little deep skinny dipping.
It looks a little deep for that.
So yeah, it's a fascinating artifact, and there's just no continuing documentation. I haven't seen anything come up about it that's new in a number of years. So there you have it.
So, meanwhile, up near the northern compound, there's a small bird called Boyne City, not too far from my northern compound. They have this thing called Stroll the Streets. It says here it's starting.
Yeah, it's starting. They do it on Thursdays, so it's starting on June 20th.
Thursdays?
You may not remember, but of course, Thursdays.
What happened to Fridays?
Thursday. My notes say Thursday, but of course, my notes are never right.
I'm thinking. Okay, I think we need to.
So we'll call it. We'll call it. It's June 20th. So that's the important part.
That's a
And
Friday.
It's a great event. They have art out on the street. There's
Yes.
music. There's street vendors. And you may not remember this, but that is where you and I met.
Yeah, strolling the streets,
I was
holding
set up
hands,
in-
looking lovingly at Lake
No, I was-
Charlevoix. It was beautiful. I remember
was
it well.
standing, okay, I was in front of a bookstore that no longer exists. No fault
That's
of
true.
my own.
It's a wine bar now.
But-
Very nice wine bar, by the way.
Yeah, it's a wine bar now, and that's a great event. Goes on all summer long, and it's always different. So that's going on.
But
up
it
there at
doesn't
the
start.
Northern
It doesn't start
Compound.
until the 20th. I thought they usually started by the 6th of June. But here we are. Doesn't matter. I trust you, Ron.
Yeah,
It's-
this is the notification that I have. It is important before you travel to a specific event to check online to make sure, because things do change.
Right. Well, I'm going to go. You know
Just
what?
like with-
I think I'm going to go check on it. I'm going to give you a report next week. All right. What else we got? Because of the technical difficulties, we got to cram some stuff in here.
So we'll take the high points.
All right.
We talked about that. Escanaba is having a Northwoods Motor Mayhem. This car show has hot rods, traditional ones, and they also are featuring the rat rods. And those are hot rods that combine the old vintage stuff with modern performance equipment. And so for the car enthusiasts, that's out at the state fairgrounds, and they'll have these things scattered all around the village.
I could use some modern performance equipment.
Yeah. And speaking of modern performance equipment, Steve, down in Belleville, it's Thunder over Michigan, and this year it's featuring the U.S. Navy Blue Angels. So I know that you've seen the Angels, one or more of them, and man, these things can rock. And they're starting it out on Friday.
That's pretty cool. All right, you got to hold that thought right there, Ron. We're going to bring you back to give you a couple extra minutes here. I did see the Golden Knights parachute team at the parade on Saturday in D.C. Boy, are they cool! Boy, do they come in hot and fast when they're doing their thing. Good Lord! All right, hold on. It's Ron Rademacher, everybody. Michigan Backroads. We'll be back in just a moment with more. All right, back with Ron Rademacher now. Let's see, we've been to Boyne City and Belleville. Don't forget to remember Jeff from Grand Blanc, Ron. He came by the Flint Fine Art Fair, right? Hey, Jeff from Grand Blanc.
Yeah, he came by at the Fine Art Fair, stopped to say hello. And we have to have another shout-out to my buddy, Jersey Dan, who is a badly TDS-infected buddy of mine. And I just want to thank him for the great work on the No Kings protest. I woke up this morning, there's not a king in the United States. So, Jersey, you boys did a good job, and keep it up.
There was one. There was one king in the United States recognized by the federal government one time.
Was that George?
No, he was killed on Beaver Island.
Yes, sir, King String, and you can still visit some sites that he had something to do with out there on Beaver Island. Very good, Steve. I'm impressed.
The only king ever recognized by the United States government, so-called King String of the Mormons. Anyhow, carry on.
Yeah, and there were some protests.
Yeah, there were some protests that led to him being shot several times.
Yes. So that was the last time anybody decided to declare themselves king. You got a lot of other stuff. Hey, listen, if you're going across the Upper Peninsula, I always tell people to stop and hike the ancient Portage Trail of Piers Gorge. It's absolutely beautiful. And since it's a short, easy one, you're going to have some spare time. So they're in the town of Norway, where the big Viking ship is. They have their music in the park all summer long, starting June 19th through August 14th. That's a great break.
There you go.
And if you like music, Charlotte's having their Bluegrass Festival at Eaton County Fairgrounds. Bob and I will be at the Fine Arts Fair, part of the Bob the Turtle World Tour this weekend.
Right.
That's pretty much the size of it.
That's pretty. I'm going to stroll the streets on Friday because it's always on Friday. Okay.
Always on Friday.
Always
I'm
on
staying corrected. Yeah, that's a great event. And we even when I wasn't one of the featured attractions, we would go and stroll it just because it's so cool.
There you go. Ron and Hilda, always appreciate you. And Bob.
Steve, thanks for having me.
God bless America. We're going to fix that little giddy up in the system so that we can see Ron's beautiful beaming smile next time around here on the Steve Gruber Show.
Yes, that's what we want.
All right, my next guest, Gordon G. Chang, the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, the coming collapse of China, and China is going to war. Look, I have got so much on my desk about China to talk about. I had to get somebody to help sort through it. We don't have nearly enough time, I'll tell you right now, but we're going to do the best we can. Gordon, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much, Steve.
And as always, if you want to keep up on the latest happenings of China, their games, their subterfuge, everything they're doing, at Gordon G. Chang on X. I still call it Twitter sometimes, but you can follow him there, and you can always find out what the latest is. Now, I want to start with this from Just the News and John Solomon, my good friend and a very talented reporter who we have the memo. It's in my hand here, Gordon, of China flooding America with tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses, August 2020. The FBI knew about it. The FBI looked at it and said, well, we'll just recall that. We won't really look into it. The fact of the matter is China flooded America with fake driver's licenses for one intent, to get people registered to vote for Joe Biden. Illegally, I might add. It's right here. It's not even in question. The memos are there. Kash Patel has the information. So the question to you is this. Based on what you've seen and read, did China not only influence the election of 2020, did they change the outcome?
I think they changed the outcome, but I can certainly say that they had a substantial effect. Got to remember that China was fully behind Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primaries. They got what they wanted, and they fully supported Biden over Trump in the general election. And again, they got what they wanted. So I think that they were the ones who cast the deciding ballots in both of those contests. And
you'll be called all sorts of things for saying that. You'll be called a conspiracy theorist and a guy. Here's the truth. The mathematical truth is they being Americans, Democrats, allege that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. No Democrat, no candidate's ever come anywhere near 81 million votes. The only explanation that I can find, and I have said from day one, Ivy and I were talking about this yesterday, I said it's not the machines, it's always been the mass mail-in ballots. That's where the problem was. That's what the hiccup in the system was. Here's COVID, comes from China. Here the driver's licenses come from China. Flood the zone with illegal votes coming from, again, China. It was never Russia. It was always China, wasn't it?
Yes. And, there were reports, unconfirmed, but I think that they are credible, that China was printing mail-in ballots. And nobody could have done that in China's near total surveillance state unless the Communist Party knew and approved of it. So here, you marry the mail-in ballots and the fake driver's licenses, and you have the makings of 81 million votes. But it's not just this. We know that Chinese propaganda was maliciously attacking President Trump in the spring of 2020. They were sending text messages with false rumors about the Stafford Act, that President Trump was going to invoke his powers under that to basically nationalize the entire U.S. So really what we were seeing was a full-on effort. And there are a lot of other very suspicious activities on the part of China that we know about, which I think fit into this narrative, such as sending in counterfeit currency into the U.S. in 2020 to fuel the George Floyd protests, also sending in automatic weapons parts so you convert a weapon to fully automatic status. So they're doing all sorts of things that were intending to disrupt the U.S. Because remember, President Trump in January and February of that year was a shoo-in for election, and he lost. So one has to wonder about the effect of China, and I think it was decisive. Of course, we'll never know.
We'll never know, or we might.
That.
We might know, and because, it's been sent over to Chuck Grassley for investigation, we'll find out. Look, I consider it an act of war. I do. I consider it an act of war. I think that it should be taken quite seriously. But I'm going to go back to real quickly before I move on to the next topic here. Factcheck.org, one of these places. Factcheck.org 2020, baseless claim turns fake ID story into voter fraud tale. You see, they were able to turn this into, you're a conspiracy theorist, when in fact, it was all true. It was true then, it's true today. The Chinese infiltrated our elections and got the result they wanted. 81 million votes, not possibly true. All right, so your headline today, India, China, and Pakistan, the big war is coming. You're apparently not too concerned about Israel and Iran, not the way you are about this three-way title fight. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm concerned about everything. Before Israel and Iran, there was India and Pakistan last month India was bombing sites in Pakistan, well far from the terrorist areas. Remember, this war started over a terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir, 26 killed. India then started to attack Pakistan's nuclear weapons sites. Pakistan started to then mobilize everything. So this was closer to nuclear war than most people thought. Now, of course, it was still well below the threshold, but I'm worried about what might happen next time. And of course, we are seeing what's going on right now in Iran. The world is falling apart. International order is dissolving. It started dissolving with the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 2021. Remember, that was on Joe Biden's watch. And then you had the war in Ukraine. You had the insurgencies in North Africa that looked like wars, the October 7th attack on Israel. And then you have India, Pakistan, and now Israel and Iran. This is a very dangerous moment for everybody.
Yeah, the dangerous moment, and let me just take that one step further. Iran's oil fields getting hit by Israel to some extent, curtailing some of their oil production. Well, China buys, from what I can figure, 25% of China's oil comes from Iran, either through the front door or out the back door. It doesn't matter how it gets there. She is already under financial pressure because of slowdowns in the economy, plus Trump's tariffs have complicated his economic outlook in China. And then you complicate it further by taking away some of the oil. She could be in trouble in China. You and I have been talking about this for a number of weeks or months now. He could be in trouble. This does not help his situation.
It certainly doesn't help his situation. I think he's lost a substantial influence and probably control over the Chinese military, which is the most powerful faction in the Communist Party. We are seeing signs of discord among civilians, although there is less corroboration for the civilian discord than there is for what we're seeing in the military. But nonetheless, this is like a very troubling situation. There are rumors going around that he's going to lose power sometime this summer. I'm not exactly sure that that's the case, but he could be kept on as a figurehead. But we are seeing some signs that show that he has lost clout among civilians as well as the military.
Yeah, real trouble for Xi Jinping, and the point that I'm making there is if China's not stable, it makes the instability with Pakistan and India more dangerous. I'll give you 20 seconds.
It certainly does. And it also makes the instability with Israel and Iran more dangerous.
Yeah.
We're seeing Chinese cargo planes land in Iran after they turned off their transponders. God knows what are in those planes.
All right. Gordon G. Chang, always there to tell us what he thinks dangerous time in this world order unraveling. Gordon, you can find him at Gordon G. Chang on X. Follow for all the latest information. Gordon, always appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Steve, and stay safe.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll take a break and be back with none other than Ivy on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now as we dive right back into the whole program here. Of course, Ivy is here. She joins me every day to set the record straight and help me along and make me laugh and make me think about things, all the things that Ivy does. Ivy, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. I think you might have left angry out of there.
What's that? Angry? Who's angry? You're angry?
I'm not angry.
No, sometimes you're angry about what you see in the headlines. I give you that.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And we've been reading a lot about, I don't know what you were going to talk about today, but just talking to Gordon G. Chang, who is just such a brilliant man, and we've been talking a lot about the attacks on agriculture, which he thinks are happening across the country, by the way, from China against our farms and our farmland. And we're going to be doing a special, I don't mind telling people now, coming up on the 26th of June on Real America's Voice and Elsewhere. You and I are going to be involved heavily with this special with John Solomon about the attack on American crops and farmland as they try to plow us under. Yeah, that's a pretty good title, Plowed Under. Anyhow, what do you want to talk about today?
No, I just to touch on that, I think we have both been talking about this issue, and a lot of people don't realize how much China is, the Chinese Communist Party is a threat to the United States and, and in the world. But if it's happening here in Michigan and happening at the University of Michigan with scientists who are studying plants, and it can be, quite frankly, it could be happening anywhere. We just happen to we happen to catch this case. So how many of these kinds of things are happening and we're just not catching them? That's the scary part.
That's right. How many get away with it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's really the concerning thing, and it's control of farmland. And I think what I was reading the other day, Maine, Texas, both have a lot of land that is owned by China, and many other states as well. Michigan has some land that is owned by China. And so we just have to really consider these things and what they mean. And quite frankly, I don't think that any foreign country or groups, if you are not necessarily an ally of ours, how can you own farmland? You can rent it, maybe for
I was talking about, in fact,
or something like that, but to outright own it, I just don't. I mean, I guess you could probably just take it back if they were really.
That's what they did in
to.
South Dakota. It's what Christine Ohm did in South Dakota. But I was talking, as you know, to a farmer yesterday that we know, who between himself and other family and extended family, they turn almost 20,000 acres in Michigan. I mean, it's a big chunk of ground, big chunks of ground. He's very concerned about this, and he said that nobody should own land in America. I agree with that. You can't own, I mean, I had a good friend had property in Mexico, had property, he could lease it for 99 years, you could never own it. Why does America allow itself to be owned? And then he pointed out that he has farm ground that they turn and have for 40 years owned by Europeans. The land in southern Michigan, a couple thousand acres, owned by Europeans for decades. Maybe we shouldn't allow that either.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think if Americans can go and own land in other countries, but it just really concerns me with foreign adversaries when we know that China and the CCP is performing these sorts of, or creating these sorts of bioweapons in the world. That I think is cause for concern and definitely should not own land, especially farmland in America. But on another note, just kind of an update on the HHS secretary in the MAHA movement, Kraft Heinz has announced that by the end of 2027, they're going to remove all harmful dyes from their food groups, from like Kool-Aid, Jell-O, Crystal Light, things like that. Now, we don't eat any of those products here in our household.
No, we don't.
And I was reading a lot of the comments.
Maybe ketchup.
Ketchup, yeah, but ketchup doesn't have dye in it, and it's interesting.
I don't know. Does ketchup really get that red on its own?
I looked. Ketchup does not have dye in it, so that is
All
a
right,
good thing.
fine.
But there are things like the things I've been looking at most recently are medications, like why does if you're on pharmaceutical, why does it need to be blue? Because
you're
it's
doing
most
drugs,
certainly
doesn't matter.
most certainly used with a food dye or something like that. So
And the
it's not only
reason-
the foods, but it's also those sorts of things too.
But by the way, the reason I ask about the ketchup, we were all down at the Eastern Market in Detroit on Sunday for Father's Day for part of the day, and we picked up some key lime pies, which, by the way, were the greatest key lime pies I've ever seen in my life. Just little pies. But they were basically almost white. They had no green to them at all, which
Right.
makes me think that key lime pie has been a fraud my entire life.
Well, being from Florida, we do get a lot of great key lime pie, and generally it is a more white color and
so-
not green.
But if you buy it in the store, they dye it green.
Well,
don't
like I
they?
said the other day, I bought seaweed because I love seaweed, and I'm like, why?
Why
is
is
it dyed
exactly right? Why
green?
would anybody eat seaweed when we? Anyhow, go on.
Anyhow, I didn't read the label that closely, and when I got home, I'm like looking at it, going, "You've got to be kidding me!"
You mean
There
your
was
seaweed has
green
dye?
food coloring to make it look more green? It's like I don't need
To
it
make
to look more
well,
green.
gosh, I can't imagine making seaweed look more appetizing because I mean, seaweed just by itself looks like so yummy thing to eat.
Well, I love it.
Brother
I'm not a big
Shane would
fan.
have a field day with this, by the way.
Oh yeah, he loves vegetables.
Yeah, he loves vegetables. Good Lord.
Eating seaweed sounds nasty.
See, and it is
come
nasty. It's
on.
like licking
Give it a
cat litter.
try.
I ain't gonna go that far, but it just sounds nasty.
I'm telling you,
Licking
it's like licking cat litter.
Oh my
They
gosh.
got me to eat that stuff once, seaweed that is, not the cat litter.
So
Anyhow,
before we run out of time, and I think we are out of time, but you know, when I think about what's happening right now in terms of the riots and the left turning this migrant situation into like, hey, this is what they did with George Floyd. They
Yeah, true.
rose up the person who is the criminal
And
into like
raised
the
them up.
victor.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they're doing with illegal immigrants. It's the same game. And all you have to do is look back and say, man, this is happening again. They're just using illegal immigration to create this unrest. So
they use criminal behavior to create unrest, right?
Yeah.
And it's paid for by
Soros and others.
China.
And China, too.
China.
Yeah.
All right, Ivy, thank you. Love you.
Love you. Thank you.
All right, greatly appreciate it. We'll take a final look at things after this. All right, well, continuing on now. As we head toward the finish line here, I see nothing fresh. Just check one more time. I don't see anything fresh from Donald Trump on Truth Social. That's, always want to keep track of that. The last thing he put up 7 hours ago, just about 2 in the morning. Still up working, apparently. Great poll numbers for Trump. Got that going on. No real headline except this: the Iranian supreme leaders rejected Trump's call to surrender. Make threats against those who are afraid, he says. Well, if you're not afraid, well, then you're just silly. Iran is now threatening the U.S., which is no surprise here. And Iranian television warns of a surprise that the world will remember for centuries, except that it didn't happen. Interesting. There you go. I don't know where this is all leading. I'm concerned about the state of the world. I am concerned that Gordon G. Chang says the world's falling apart, whether it's India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, China, and other skirmishes in South Sudan and other civil wars, things of that nature. So there you have it. We'll keep you up to speed every single day right here. We watch it overnight. We get up early. We do our homework. We make sure you are informed. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is The Steve Gruber Show. And remember, my friends, that only you can save America.